Welcome back. Today, in this explainer, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most successful biological designs in the history of our planet. I'm talking about the vertebrate blueprint. We're going to rapidly decode the sheer diversity, the structural foundations, and all those amazing anatomical upgrades that define the highest phylum in the animal kingdom. We've got a ton of fascinating ground to cover, so let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the chordate connection, define what actually makes a vertebrate, and trace the whole journey from water to land. Then we'll look at the rulers of land and air, map out the mammal blueprint, and finally track the evolution of our major body systems. So, to kick things off, what do you, with your incredibly complex human body, structurally share with a gelatinous, seemingly featureless marine creature like a sea squirt? Well, the answer actually lies deep in your embryonic development, and it forms the entire basis of our taxonomic group.
Section 1. The chordate connection. Let's establish that foundational blueprint.
Right, so every single chordate on Earth, from that little marine sea squirt all the way to you and me, is united by three fundamental anatomical traits that show up during early embryonic life. First up is the notochord. Think of it as a flexible, rod-like supporting structure located just above the digestive canal. Second, right above that notochord is a dorsal, hollow, tubular nerve cord. And third, pharyngeal gill slits. Now, the crucial thing to remember here is that you don't actually need to keep these as an adult to be a chordate. In most higher vertebrates, the notochord either disappears or gets heavily modified, and those gill slits are completely lost once we develop lungs. But structurally speaking, this is the original blueprint. Now, when we compare this chordate setup to non-chordates, the invertebrates, we immediately see a massive, game-changing leap in structural superiority. Just look at the vital systems. Chordates have a ventrally placed heart and a closed blood vascular system. What that means is the blood flows continuously inside closed vessels. It's like the high-pressure plumbing in a modern city, shooting resources exactly where they need to go, super fast. Invertebrates, on the other hand, generally have a ventral nerve cord and an open or even entirely absent vascular system. It's more like an open trough. So the chordate's closed loop and that dorsal nerve cord really set the stage for highly active, large-scale body designs. Section 2, defining the vertebrate. Let's talk about the major upgrade. So what is a vertebrate exactly? Well, it's essentially a highly specialized chordate. Evolution basically took that flexible notochord and replaced it with a jointed, living endoskeleton made of flexible cartilage or solid bone. We call that the vertebral column, or your backbone. On top of that, the anterior end of that dorsal nerve cord enlarges into a complex tripartite brain, which then gets entirely encased and protected by a cranium or skull. That combination right there, a backbone and a protected brain, is the ultimate vertebrate signature. And guys, this upgraded design is stunningly successful. Get this, there are roughly 49,000 recognized species of vertebrates. About 40,000 of those are actually living today, with the rest hanging out in the fossil record. From the absolute deepest oceans to the highest atmospheric altitudes, this blueprint has adapted to conquer nearly every single environment on Earth.
Section 3. From water to land, the truly epic transition.
We can actually divide vertebrates pretty cleanly into two major groups based on this land transition. First, you have the lower vertebrates, or amniotes. These are your fishes and amphibians, primarily aquatic. They rely heavily on gills, they use external fertilization, their embryos lack a crucial protective membrane, and their sensory input is limited to just 10 pairs of cranial nerves. But then we get the higher vertebrates, the amniotes, reptiles, birds, mammals. They upgraded to 12 pairs of cranial nerves for super heightened sensory processing, and, this is huge, they evolved a special extra embryonic membrane called the amnion. Combine that amnion with internal fertilization and fully developed lungs, and boom, you have a biological machine that is completely freed from needing standing water to survive and reproduce.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that evolution isn't just a straight line. Think about fish, the original masters of the water, perfectly streamlined amniotes breathing through gills. But then look at sea turtles. These are higher terrestrial amniotes that actually decided to return to the oceans millions of years later. But because they were built on that upgraded terrestrial blueprint, they don't magically get their gills back. They kept their lungs and still have to surface to breathe air. It just goes to show you can't easily undo a fundamental anatomical upgrade.
Sitting right between those pure aquatic and pure terrestrial worlds is the amphibian bridge. Amphibians are tetrapods, meaning four-limbed vertebrates, but they're still tied to moist environments. Their skin is soft, glandular, and totally lacks scales, which actually allows them to quite literally breathe right through it. We call that cutaneous respiration. Internally, their heart got an upgrade from a fish's 2 chambers to 3 chambers, 2 auricles and 1 ventricle, which creates a much more complex circulatory route. They are still poikilothermous or cold-blooded, and their larvae breathe via gills while adults use lungs or their skin, but they are the absolute perfect anatomical stepping stone between water and land.
Section 4. Rulers of Land and Air. The amnio takeover really begins here. So reptiles were the very first to fully sever those ties with the water. How? Well, their skin is dry, cornified, and fully armored with horny epidermal scales. This effectively locks all the moisture inside the body. Their nervous system gets a massive upgrade to 12 pairs of cranial nerves, giving them way better sensory input. And their internal engine gets an upgrade too, boasting an incompletely four-chambered heart that does a better job separating oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and absolutely crucial to their success, internal fertilization and the development of large shelled eggs. They literally brought the aquatic environment with them inside the egg, which allowed them to reproduce in even the driest deserts. A real game changer.
And springing right from that reptilian lineage, we get birds, or class Avs. Think about the specific features of a bird, like a toucan. Literally, everything about the ave's blueprint is ruthlessly optimized to handle the massive energy demands of flight. Those heavy, bony jaws, replaced by a super lightweight, toothless beak. And if you could look inside their bone structure, you'd see they are pneumatic, meaning they're hollow and filled with air to shed as much weight as possible. To power all those flight muscles, they upgraded to a fully partitioned 4-chambered heart and became homoeothermous, warm-blooded. That lets them maintain a crazy high constant metabolic rate no matter what the temperature is outside.
Section 5. The mammal blueprint. Let's take a look at our own highly specialized family tree. I know it's just a squirrel, but you are looking at the exact same foundational traits that govern your own body right now. Mammals follow some very strict structural rules. We're clad in hair for insulation. Females possess mammary glands to suckle their young with milk. We have a muscular diaphragm that completely separates our thoracic cavity from our abdominal cavity, which was a massive upgrade for breathing efficiently. And our skull is dicondylic. That means it articulates with the vertebral column via 2 distinct joints. Fun fact, that's exactly the anatomical feature allowing you to nod your head yes right now. But the mammalian blueprint is truly defined by its internal engine and sensory processing. Similar to birds, we're rocking a 4-chambered heart, but uniquely, we only retain the left aortic arch. To maximize our warm-blooded metabolism, our red blood cells are small, circular, and they entirely lack a nucleus. That dramatically increases their oxygen-carrying capacity. Our hearing is incredibly acute too, and that's thanks to exactly 3 middle ear ossicles, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. All of this high-quality sensory input feeds directly into a highly developed brain, making mammals uniquely equipped to handle complex, active, high-information environments. Section 6. Evolution of Body Systems. Let's trace one specific system through the timeline.
And this brilliantly illustrates the step-by-step, relentless optimization of vertebrate anatomy. Look at how the heart upgrades. We start with the fishes, a very simple 2-chambered venous heart pumping cold blood straight to the gills. Then, as we hit the amphibians, the system branches out, upgrading to a 3-chambered heart to juggle the dual demands of lungs and skin. Finally, in mammals and birds, the heart is perfectly walled off into 4 distinct chambers, 0 mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. It is a high-pressure, incredibly efficient engine, purpose-built to sustain a warm-blooded, superactive existence on dry land.
Every single bone, every blood vessel, and every organ inside your body represents an unbroken chain of millions of years of anatomical upgrades. You, sitting there, are a highly specialized chordate, walking around with a 4-chambered engine, a highly protected tripartite brain, and a completely closed vascular system. So, I'll leave you with this to ponder. If the vertebrate blueprint is this unbelievably adaptable, what incredible structural adaptations might it undergo next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the science of the world around you.